Every time you rush to explain your choices, your silence is already being sold away. You think you are protecting your image, but often you are handing your peace to strangers, critics, family members, co-workers, and invisible judges who were never qualified to rule your life in the first place. This habit hides inside very ordinary pain. You post something and wait for reactions. You change careers and feel pressure to defend it. You spend money, save money, stay in a relationship, leave a relationship, and immediately feel the need to build a case for the jury in other people's minds. That quiet panic is expensive. It drains attention, weakens your center, and makes your emotional life depend on approval that never truly arrives. There is a brutal insight hidden here. The urge to explain yourself is rarely a sign of confidence. It is more often a request for permission. The ego says, if they finally understand me, then I can rest. But peace built on being understood is fragile, because other people do not hear with clean ears. They hear through fear, envy, memory, ideology, and personal need. So the more desperately you explain, the more you can become trapped inside their inner noise. Ancient wisdom saw this long ago. Lao Tzu points toward a different power, one that does not wrestle for recognition. Water does not stop to defend its softness. It does not argue with the rock. It flows, and in flowing, it outlasts what resists it. This is the doorway to Wu Wei, the art of non-forcing, non-struggling, non-performative effort. Not passivity, not weakness. A deeper form of strength that refuses to waste life proving what is already real. Here is the shift that matters. You do not need to explain every decision to protect your dignity. Sometimes explanation is the very thing that lowers it. Sometimes silence is the cleanest form of self-respect. And as we move forward, the real question will not be how to make everyone understand you. It will be why you became addicted to being understood at all. The addiction to being understood creates a strange kind of suffering. You begin to believe that clarity will save you. If you just find the right words, the right tone, the right evidence, then people will finally see your intention and respond fairly. But very often, the opposite happens. The more you explain, the more resistance appears. Why? Because explanation can feel like pressure. When someone is already suspicious, your extra words do not calm them. They give them more material to resist, reinterpret, and use against you. Inside the mind, a courtroom appears. You become the defendant, the prosecutor, the witness, and the judge all at once. You rehearse arguments in the shower. You rewrite old conversations while driving. You imagine how you should have answered that passive-aggressive comment, that family criticism, that accusation wrapped in concern. This courtroom feels intelligent, but it is usually only anxiety wearing the mask of reason. It promises control while feeding obsession. And because the trial never truly ends, your life starts to bend around invisible verdicts that were never even spoken aloud. This is where over-explaining reveals something deeper. It is often a symptom of weak boundaries. When your inner border is thin, every opinion enters like weather. Every misunderstanding feels like an invasion. Every false judgment feels like an emergency. So you defend, clarify, justify, and overstate, hoping language will build the boundary you never trusted yourself to hold in silence. But words cannot replace inner authority. If your center depends on external agreement, no explanation will ever be enough. A Taoist lens offers a cleaner perspective. Wu Wei does not ask you to become cold or distant. It asks you to stop feeding unnecessary friction, to stop pushing where pushing only multiplies resistance, to recognize that not every accusation deserves a defense, not every misunderstanding deserves a correction, And not every emotional demand deserves your chi. This is not about winning arguments. It is about refusing to leak energy into dynamics that grow stronger the more you wrestle them. Here is the lived truth. Every extra sentence can become another thread tying you to someone else's perception. And if you keep pulling those threads, soon your whole nervous system belongs to the conversation. An old Taoist parable exposes how much of this struggle comes from hunger for validation and why true communication begins only when defense ends. Zhuangzi offers a parable sharp enough to cut through vanity. He tells of a phoenix, an undying bird of rare grace, rising from the southern sea and flying toward the north. This bird does not land just anywhere. It rests only in sacred trees. It eats only the finest fruit. It drinks only from the clearest springs. Its presence belongs to a different order of being. Below, on the ground, an owl clutches a half-decayed dead rat in its claws. Then the owl looks up, sees the phoenix passing overhead, and screeches in alarm, gripping the rotten prize even tighter, as if the great bird had come to steal it. The power of this image is not merely poetic. It is diagnostic. The owl represents the mind trapped in small possessions, small status, small fears, and small interpretations. It assumes everyone wants what it wants. It cannot imagine that another being might move by a different principle entirely. So it projects conflict where none exists. It sees threat because threat is the language of its own hunger. The phoenix, by contrast, does not descend to explain itself. It does not circle back to reassure the owl. It does not shout from the sky, "You misunderstand me." It simply continues on its way. This is the wound hidden in our need for validation. When you over-explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you are often treating them as if they were capable of seeing from your altitude, but many cannot. Not because they are evil, but because perception follows appetite. People hear according to what they cling to. Their fears filter your words. Their insecurities reshape your meaning. Their own dead rat becomes the measure of your motives. Once you see this, a deep relief begins. You stop expecting clarity to emerge in a mind that profits from distortion. Now, an important distinction appears. Communicating is not the same as defending. Communication is clean. It states what is true, what is needed, what is chosen. Defense is heavy. It carries fear, over-detail, emotional pleading, and the hidden hope that another person will grant reality to your life. One comes from center. The other comes from hunger. This is why some of your longest explanations have left you feeling smaller than before. The phoenix does not perform self-justification for the owl. That is the lesson. Once that lands, silence starts to feel less like absence and more like alignment. From there, the deeper principle becomes clear. Silence shifts the power dynamic because it interrupts the ritual of extraction. Many people do not challenge you to understand you. They challenge you to pull you into their emotional frame. They want reaction, defense, hesitation, or visible instability. The moment you start over-explaining, you step into the structure they prepared for you. You begin proving, correcting, softening, justifying. Your energy leaves your center and starts orbiting their judgment. Calm silence breaks that pattern. It starves the conflict before it can feed. This is why restraint can feel so powerful. A mind that cannot read you easily cannot control you easily. Those who truly know are not eager to display themselves in endless speech. That principle does not mean never talking. It means speech should emerge from clarity, not compulsion. When words come from compulsion, they reveal where your ego is hooked. When they come from stillness, they carry less fear and more weight. Sometimes the strongest answer to a passive-aggressive attack is not a clever rebuttal at all. Sometimes it is a soft, detached phrase such as, "Maybe you are right," followed by "no struggle, no chase, no defense." This opens into ziran, naturalness, the way something exists by being fully itself without artificial strain. The tree does not justify its crooked trunk. The river does not explain its curve. The sky does not defend its weather. Existence at its deepest level is unjustified, yet complete. To live closer to this law is to stop treating your life like a case that needs constant presentation. You do what is true, you speak when useful, and you stop negotiating with every witness in the gallery. The psychological weight of justifying your life is enormous because it turns simple existence into endless performance. You begin editing your desires before you even feel them. You second-guess decisions that were clear in solitude. You carry imaginary audiences into rooms where only your own conscience should be present. Over time, this creates inner emptiness because your actions become less about direct living and more about preemptive explanation. That is the real drain of qi. Not effort alone, but effort distorted by self-defense. A different freedom starts here. You can let some people misread you. You can let a false impression remain uncorrected when correcting it would cost your peace. You can choose unreadability over performance, and in doing so, you do not become less human. You become less available to manipulation. That leads to the next insight. People usually hear through their paradigm, not through your intention. This is one of the most liberating and painful truths in human life. If someone is committed to seeing you as selfish, your boundaries will look selfish. If someone needs you to stay small, your growth will look arrogant. If someone fears freedom, your independence will look irresponsible. This is why many explanations fail before they begin. Words enter a frame that has already decided what they mean. So your endless clarifications do not create understanding. They simply feed a machine built to translate everything into its preferred conclusion. Taoist thought offers a subtle remedy through what Zhuangzi calls the fasting of the heart. This means emptying the heart-mind so that it becomes open and responsive without being disturbed or captured by what passes through it. In lived terms, this means learning to listen without instantly defending, to feel judgment without swallowing it, and to let words arrive without turning every opinion into an internal command. A fast of the heart is not emotional numbness. It is the refusal to keep feeding yourself with the noise of other people's projections. This is where internal authority is reclaimed, not through domination, not through superiority, through non-possession of every passing judgment. You hear it, but you do not house it. You notice it, but you do not build an identity around answering it. Slowly, the compulsion to explain begins to loosen. You realize that not every misunderstanding is a crisis. Not every critic is a teacher. Not every accusation is a mirror. Some are only echoes of another person's private struggle. When someone throws a hook, pause before answering. Feel the body. Relax the jaw. Lower the shoulders. Say only what serves truth, not what serves fear. If a short answer is enough, stop there. If silence is enough, stop there. If calm agreement disarms the trap, use it. Maybe you are right. I hear your view. That is one way to see it. These phrases do not surrender your dignity. They protect it from being dragged into unnecessary theater. This is the turning point. Once the heart stops fasting on validation, it regains its own taste. You begin to know your life from the inside again. From a wider view of life, the absurdity of constantly proving yourself becomes easier to see. Why spend your life trying to justify your existence to fragments inside the same vast process that produced you? The river does not submit an argument for flowing. It participates. So how do you cultivate the art of non-explanation in daily life? First, separate information from self-defense. Speak when clarity is useful, but notice when extra words are an attempt to buy approval. Second, shorten your answers. Let simple truth stand on its own legs. Third, practice delayed response. Most over-explaining is impulsive and fear-driven. A pause restores choice. Fourth, allow misunderstanding when the cost of correction is your peace. Fifth, train the body to stay soft under judgment. The nervous system often explains before the mind even decides to. Sixth, remember the owl and the phoenix. Some people cannot hear beyond what they cling to. Your task is not to descend into every screech. This path does not make you cold. It makes you clean. You still communicate. You still care. You still apologize when needed and clarify when appropriate. But you stop living as if your worth depends on being correctly interpreted by every passing mind. That is the deeper relief. To be misunderstood and remain undisturbed. To be judged and not recruited into self-betrayal. To act from inner alignment instead of social panic. That is the Taoist rule hidden inside this entire journey. The need to explain is often the false ego asking for permission to exist. Wu Wei answers differently. It does not beg, chase, or perform. It stays rooted, natural, and inwardly empty enough to let noise pass through without becoming identity. If this way of seeing brought you something real, subscribe to Taoist Diary and continue walking this path with us. What you learned here is simple, but not small. Silence can protect energy. Naturalness can restore dignity. And peace begins the moment you stop turning your life into a courtroom.